Films in Focus with David Sterritt is underwritten by The Movie House, your destination for first-run Hollywood and independent movies, and a digital portal to the Met Opera, National Theatre Live, and special events worldwide in Millerton, New York, and on the web, themoviehouse.net.
David Sterritt is the editor-in-chief of the Quarterly Review of Film and Video, contributing writer, cineast, film professor at the Maryland Institute College of Art, Robin Hood Radio's very own critic. He joins us weekly, and ooh, what a selection. The films: King Richard, Come On, and The Last Duel. This is really easy, so I'm not even going to try. This is not, this is like the Monday crossword. Hi, David. How are you?
Doing okay, Jill. And yourself?
Same. May I challenge you to a duel?
Well, that will have to be the last thing we do because that's, after all, the last duel. Oh, boy. So let's begin instead with King Richard. And King Richard, it's a movie that's streaming and people can see it very easily. And I found it a very interesting movie. It surprised me because I try to be more or less a clean slate when I go in to see a movie for the first time. And I was expecting something different from this film. And what it turned out to be was, it's not the most dramatic movie you ever saw, but it's an interesting picture. Anyway, King Richard, directed by Reynaldo Marcus Green, stars the wonderful actor Will Smith. Oh, he is just so good. And he is playing a real-life character who is the Richard Williams, who is the father of the tennis superstars, Venus Williams and Serena Williams. Two fabulous talents. And so what we have in King Richard is the story of him getting them into the tennis playing game and trying to cultivate them into the superstars that they eventually became. And of course, what lends all of this a really fascinating extra interest is that, of course, tennis is very largely, not entirely, but very largely a white dominated sport, and here we have these black people, and they really broke a lot of barriers, and very impressively so. So that is what the movie is about. Now, with the title, King Richard, I just somehow naturally assumed that this was going to be another one of those biopics about a domineering, tyrannical father who browbeats and bullies the kids into success and that kind of thing. The kind of thing that we've seen with fathers and husbands in all kinds of movies in all kinds of different fields, some of them based on real life cases. And it just turns out to be the opposite of that. Yes, Richard Williams, the King Richard of the title, turns out to be a bossy guy, and he knows exactly how he wants to do things, and he is always setting penalties if goals aren't met and stuff like that. But he's also a pretty nice fellow. He has his obnoxious quirks and ways of doing things sometimes, but he really kind of knows what he's doing. Even though he's just an ordinary guy, he's not a trained psychologist or a trained sports therapist or anything like that. He seems to know what he's doing, and he really successfully helps these two young women grow up into the tremendously successful people whom they became. And we see him doing the things that I guess the real Richard Williams probably really had to do, trying to break through the barriers. He goes to different coaches because that's what he's coaching the girls himself, but he really wants to get a top-ranked professional coach to work with them. And, they just think it's all kind of amusing. Well, who do you think you are? And yeah, okay, I can see they can play pretty well, but, this is not just a game, and you really have to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so he has to go and try somebody else and try somebody else. And, of course, he does eventually find a coach, but only for one of the girls. And so then the other girl has to keep working with him. And, by the way, the mother is into this, too. Her Brandy Williams, as she is known, she is in on this, and she is also helping to coach. And so anyway, we see them working their way very, very gradually up the ladder and finally reaching a little bit of success in terms of finding a coach. And one thing that's going on all through this is that Venus and Serena Williams are really, really, really playing well. They're terrific. And I got to mention one more thing before I get to the cast and so forth, and that is that the girls, just like the father is not the tyrannical ogre who I was sort of expecting to see in a movie of this ilk, the girls are really terrific. In fact, they have a few children, and they all seem to be incredibly smart and disciplined and well-behaved. So we're not getting the cliches that you so often get in biopics and in purely fictional pics about kids who are warped and twisted by the rough upbringing or the difficult things that are being demanded of them. Everybody in this movie is well-adjusted and nice. And that is such a refreshing change. Now, I have to say, King Richard is a pretty long movie. It goes on for something like 2.5 hours. And it doesn't really have much drama in it. It's mainly a story of just sort of success, gradual success, incremental success. But that's basically it. Nice people gradually but successfully achieving their goals. So it's not a very dramatic movie, but it's just a nice movie. And I had a nice time watching it. Now, a little bit more about the cast. I mentioned Will Smith, and the movie is named after his character, and he is, of course, a terrific actor, and he's terrific in this movie. Ingenue Ellis is just wonderful as his wife, and as the young women, Sania Sidney plays Venus Williams, Demi Singleton plays Serena Williams. They are both really, really good, wonderful young actors. So I had a good time watching King Richard. I'll say one more time, it's not a very dramatic movie, but it's just a very nice movie. And at a time when Hollywood and others are going so far out of their way to try to get more black people on the screen, which is really important, and more minorities of all kinds, this is a movie that really succeeds in that. It's just a nice movie about nice people, and it's a bonus that they're members of a minority entering a field which was not all that difficult for them to enter in real life. So again, a nice and an admirable movie, if not a great one. Our second movie today, Jill, come on, let's go. It's a very, very different sort of thing. This season is full of movies that are over 2 hours long. Come on is a refreshing movie, which is somewhat under 2 hours long. And it's a very nice movie and a very unusual movie, even a kind of a poetic movie. Written and directed by Mike Mills, who's only made a couple of feature films before now, although he's made a number of shorts as well. And the main selling point of this movie is Joaquin Phoenix, who, nowadays I think we think of him in terms of Joker and movies where he plays these over-the-top characters and this and that. But here we have a quiet, poetic, actually introspective movie where he plays a quiet, poetic, introspective part. And it's a very unusual film, so I'll describe it a little bit here. But Joaquin Phoenix plays a guy named Johnny, and he is a radio journalist. And the project that he has embarked on involves going to different cities to interview basically teenagers, adolescents, children, about how they see life, their goals in life, what they want to accomplish, how they feel about this and that. And we have a lot of that in the movie. We have a lot of him with his microphone aimed at some young person, asking questions and mainly just listening to the answers. And so we have a lot of that, and a lot of that is real stuff where we're not seeing professional actors do this. We're seeing actual young people answering questions as he goes through this radio project. In the meanwhile, he has a sister named Viv, played by Gabby Hoffman, and she has a little boy named Jesse, played by Woody Norman, an amazing child performance, by the way. And she is going through some difficulties with her husband, whose name is Paul, played by Scoot McNairy, who is bipolar and who has real mental difficulties and who is going off into another one of his episodes and is probably going to have to be hospitalized. So we have Viv, who is separated from her husband, and the husband who is going through a bipolar episode. And while they go through that, who is going to look after the little boy who is 9 years old, Jesse? Well, it's going to have to be Johnny, the brother and brother-in-law of Viv and Paul. But he is embarked on his radio project, which involves going to different cities. So that's the movie. Basically, we have Johnny, played by Joaquin Phoenix, looking after Jesse, played by Woody Norman, as they travel around, as he tries to juggle doing his job with looking after this 9-year-old. Now, the big creative secret of this movie is that the 9-year-old is a fascinating character. He listens to classical music, not rock and roll, not rap. He is smart. He likes to read. He likes to be read to. And there's a whole lot of that stuff that goes on in the movie. But he's also a kid. And sometimes he'll wander around the corner in the big city and get lost. And Johnny will totally panic. What happened to him? Where is he? Has something horrific happened? And so forth and so on. So that's what the movie basically is. It's Johnny looking looking after Jesse, while as a sort of a subplot, we have the drama of Viv worrying about and looking after her husband. And there's also a little bit about Johnny and Viv's mother, who is dying and is very old, and she dies early in the movie, but that's another little subplot that goes on. So there's a lot of unhappiness in this movie. The mental illness episodes, the dying old mother episode, but mostly the movie is just this very quiet, poetic look at these two main characters, who are Johnny and very young Jesse. The movie is very verbal in a lot of ways. There are times when somebody will be reading something within the story, maybe reading something to him or herself, or maybe reading something to young Jesse, and we actually have the title and author of what it is that is being read spread across the screen, and we just hear this reading for a little while. And then, as I mentioned, we have the interviews that Johnny is doing with his very young subjects. And then we have, obviously, regular dialogue and people going through different episodes and, little minor excitements over the course of the movie. So Come On, Come On, it's not a great movie, but it's a very interesting and unusual, and as I keep saying, poetic movie that has this very sort of nice vibe to it. So I really had a very good time watching it. And if you want something that's a break from the big, huge epics that we sometimes see, and certainly it's the total opposite of a whole lot of the big, noisy movies that Joaquin Phoenix has been in, then go see this movie. It's a movie that is about acting. It is about listening to one another. And it's very much just about being literate and trying to get along in a complicated world where sometimes relationships are a little bit difficult to manage, but turn out always to be worthwhile in the end. It's a nice movie. King Richard and Come On, Come On are both nice movies. And finally, The Last Duel. This is a movie by the very fine director Ridley Scott. And he's another one of these directors who has two movies out in this single season. Just recently, Jill, we were talking about his movie House of Gucci, which is a very long movie about the fashion house of the Guccis, with all kinds of drama in it. Now we have The Last Duel, by the way, another movie with Adam Driver in a leading role, again directed by Ridley Scott, very long. It's about 2.5 hours long, but it is so different from House of Gucci because it is a period movie. It goes way, 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 way back in time, several centuries ago, in fact, in the Middle Ages, basically. And we have here a story of a horrible event which has occurred, and we see it and we find out the whole history of it from three different points of view. So what we have here are our main characters, played by Matt Damon and Adam Driver and Jodie Comer. And Matt Damon is basically a knight, and so is Adam Driver. And at the very beginning of the movie, the very first thing that happens is we see that they are going to have a joust. It is the last duel, and it is going to be to the death. And we see them driving at each other on their horses with their lances aimed, but we don't find out how it came out. And then the whole rest of the movie, for way over 2 hours, is the backstory to this. And it turns out that Matt Damon's wife, Jodie Comer, was apparently raped by the other main character played by Adam Driver. And this, of course, infuriates her husband, Matt Damon, and he vows revenge. He's going to do something about this. Now, there's other stuff going on, too. There's property disputes and rivalries and this and that. But that is the basics of it. And so what we have for the whole first part of the movie, about a third of it, is the whole movie from the Matt Damon character's point of view, culminating in the fact when he finds out that his wife has, in fact, apparently been raped. At least that's what she claims. However, the whole second long part of the movie is the whole story over again from the other male main character's point of view, from the Adam Driver character's point of view. And he has a very different take on this whole thing. It wasn't exactly a rape. It was a very different kind of thing. And there were different kinds of circumstances. And he isn't really as culpable as we might have assumed from the whole first part of the movie. And then finally, we see the movie from the point of view of the woman who either was or was not horrifically wronged. And we get her side of the story. And then we come back in the last part of the movie to the thing that we got set up with at at the very beginning, which is the last duel, the final duel between these two. And of course, the stakes are enormous, because as this last duel starts to happen, when these two are going to ride at one another with gigantic lances in their hands and their horses charging and all of that. First of all, if the Matt Damon character wins, that's fine. That means that God has said that his version of the story was the correct one. But if he loses, that means that his story, God has said that his story is not the correct one, which not only means that he is going to be killed in the duel, but that his wife, Marguerite, is going to be burned at the stake. So, oh my gosh, the stakes are very, very high on all this. So it sounds a little confusing when I tell it, but it's a very, very clear movie. It uses the same pattern as that old Japanese movie classic Rashomon, where we have a story of a horrible act of violence told from three different points of view, and we sort of have to sift through and see which one of those points of view is the correct one. The screenplay, very interestingly, was co-written by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, who started off their careers with a screenplay they wrote many, many years ago, Good Will Hunting, and now they've collaborated again with a third collaborator, Nicole Holofcener, another very gifted filmmaker. So we have a very interesting screenplay here. We have a very good director, Ridley Scott, and I found the whole movie, even at 2.5 hours, moved along very swiftly, and I was engaged in it from first to last. It's an exciting movie, it's an adventurous movie, and it's a movie which has a lot of things to say to us today in the age of the Me Too movement. So I recommend The Last Duel if you want to see a good old-fashioned action epic set in the Middle Ages. The Last Duel is exactly what you want to see. And so that is my somewhat epic story this week, Jill.
For which we thank you very much, David Sterritt. Films in Focus, the films King Richard, Come On, Come On, and The Last Duel.